Hello everyone, today in my video I'll go over my round 3 games of the 2021 Chess.com Daily Chess Championships. As you can see on the screen, my adventure in the tournament ended in round 3 with a result of 12.5 points and finishing somewhere in the middle of my group. When I saw the players in my group, at first I was very happy because there was only one titled player and who also didn't play his games. He timed out on move 1. And the other players didn't seem so dangerous. However, once the game started and they were progressing, I could quickly see that there was no chance in some of the games. I got completely destroyed. And also when I looked at the game analysis, my opponents made 0 mistakes and they followed the computer's first choice in almost all of the game. So while I really trust the Chess.com analysis and detection system and team, it really seems that at least some of my opponents in my groups were blunder checking or using engine to help their games. So therefore for this video I decided to choose 2 games which were quite interesting, full of mistakes from both sides, and really seems that I played against a human opponent there. And I will focus on those 2 games for the analysis. The first game that I will look at is my game against Ian the Edge. One of the players who actually played his moves quite fast, and I enjoyed both my games against him. I started the French defense, knight c3. I usually play knight d2, however I wanted to opt for some change here, especially that I was able to use the opening explorer and maybe learn some new lines on the way. Knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, knight e5, knight d7, h4. This is a line which I actually used real life a couple of years ago with some successes, so I have some good memories from it. a6. Here, taking it's actually not the best move probably, because white goes knight h3, queen e7, knight f4, something like that. And white has very good compensation for the pawn with the h-file. If black castles with some knight b5 threats, maybe some knight h5, knight f6 if black's knight moves. And I think the position is quite good for white. My opponent went with a6, which is still a book move, queen g4. I can actually show it here. Bishop takes g5, h takes g5. So instead of opting to take the pawn on g5 by taking twice on g5 at first, black actually goes for c5 and counterattacking the center. Here, if I play some logical move like knight f3, black can take knight c6, and white has problems with the e5 square. So the move that was played, the main book move is g6. It seems crashing at first because black cannot take here and black cannot take here. However, black has the f5 move, and actually there is nothing white can do here, because for example if rook takes h7, then black can take and black wins. If it takes f6, knight f6 defends the e6 square, and there's nothing for white here. So the main move is queen f4, h6. Now black locks the king side. However, if he castles, he might still have to consider some rook takes h6 options. So knight f3, I continue my development, rook f8. This move actually surprised me. The main logical move, also the book move, would be knight c6. I'm guessing maybe my opponent was scared of some knight g5 tricks, and now after rook f8 he can take on g5. However, it also means that he won't be able to castle kingside. D takes c5, knight takes c5, long castle. So of course I want to finish my development here. Knight c6, natural move. Queen e3. The idea behind queen e3 is that maybe I want to play knight d4 and f4 in the future to defend the e5 square, or maybe also want to play rook h4 so it defends right here, like that in the middle. Queen a5, knight d4. Here actually the engine shows I had a trick bishop b5 which I didn't spot, but there's nothing special. Black doesn't have to take, which is good for white, but he can just play knight e4, and it's also slightly better for white. So here I played, black played bishop d7, and I played rook h4, which I planned before. The idea is that I defend against f4 and basically put my rook into play like that, without moving the bishop from f1, since it doesn't really have any good square to move. Knight e7, queen g3, I defend the pawn. Again, the computer suggests some knight db5 tricks, which I simply didn't spot. Queen takes c5, also an interesting position. Queen g3, b5. Here, it seems the best move was long castle. However, it's not that easy of a decision to make, since at first glance it seems that the king is safe on e8, and maybe black wants to make some counterattack here with b4, rook c8 or rook b8. a3, knight e4, knight takes c4, f takes c4, so black is also playing logical moves. Bishop e2. Now that's, as you can see, a mistake according to the computer, even though it's a fully logical move, but maybe it's too slow. The computer suggests to not play bishop e2, just play f3 straight away. It takes f3, and now I guess now rook f4. And the difference between this and rook f4 right away is that after rook takes e4, queen takes f4, knight takes g6, queen g3, king f7. Without f3 and it takes f3, white doesn't have an option to play bishop d3 with a tempo, and the position is very unclear. So I played the logical move bishop e2, black played b4, which is the best move. Rook f4, that was my plan. So my plan was to play rook f4, and then after rook takes f4, black doesn't have knight takes g6. And actually it seems that the rook f4 is a mistake, and black was able to take on a3 in time, which I thought is not possible, because I saw rook f8, king f8, queen f4. But actually it seems that knight f5, and I don't have time for g4 because of a2, and actually black is close to winning here. So rook f4 was a mistake, queen takes f4, knight f3, that's another mistake, so long castle was best. And it seems that I'm winning here, and knight b3 is a mistake, so I'm wondering what's the winning idea. So as I can see here, it's knight takes f5, he takes f5 and e6. To be honest, I didn't think of that. I felt I had to keep the knight on d4, and maybe it's winning by force. Say bishop e6, queen e5, or queen d6. Queen b6, rook d5, rook d8, and now the best move according to the computer is bishop c4, and probably black cannot hold all the pieces. However, that's also not that easy to spot if you're not taking as much time as in a real-life classical game. And if e6, bishop c6, queen takes f5, black never has the time to take on a3, has to go back, and seems like white is just winning by taking all of the pawns. So I played knight b3, which is a logical move. It defends against taking on a3, a2, a1, and also gives me the option to play g4 in the future. Queen c7, g4. Now g4 seems like a blunder. So the winning move was a takes b4. I was thinking about a takes b4, but I calculated rook c8, rook d2, and it seems like I probably imagined something which was not here, because after bishop a4, I think I just have knight c5, which is winning. So I'm not really sure what I was thinking when I played the g4 straight away. It was probably too much of a hurry. And I also thought I'm winning after g4, and turns out I'm not. He takes a3. Black also had the option to play bishop a4, which I thought is okay for me. King b1, bishop b3, knight e7, queen f7. I thought I'm winning here, but it seems black is taking d7. This position is very unclear again. However, what black played, bishop b takes a3 is the very logical move. G takes f5, rook c8, rook d2, a takes b2. I was also thinking about bishop a4 here, but is queen f7, I think, and I'm first to take all the pawns and win the endgame. A takes b2, king b1. Here I was also thinking about king b2, but I followed the general rule that if black takes a pawn like that, we actually can use it as a cover for our own king. So I played king b1, and of course I can take the pawn later. He takes f5, queen g3. Now queen g3 is a mistake, and apparently I was supposed to play bishop g4, which is another computer move, a weird move, but I guess if you calculate everything you can play it. It seems like I can just ignore the king side and just focus on taking on f5 and then on d7, and black cannot do anything. So any move like queen c3 or queen c4, queen f1, they don't do anything. I played queen g3, which is the logical move to defend b3 after after bishop a4. Bishop takes a6. Again a mistake, even though I calculated the line which follows and I thought I'm winning here. Seems like knight d4 was better. I played bishop a6, looking forward to rook a8. So rook a8, of course the logical move here is rook a8. Rook b8 is also possible. The engine claims it's better, because even though rook a8 is the logical move which attacks the bishop with tempo that most people would play, and also after rook a8 you can play rook a1 later. It seems that after rook b8, even though there's no like direct threat except bishop b3 and queen c1, white actually has to take here queen a5, which is similar to the game but in a better version. And black gets back the piece, and it actually seems black is better here. However, my opponent played the logical move rook a8. I played bishop e2. Having calculated the line that's going to follow, bishop takes b3, queen takes b3, rook a1 check. Now, maybe something that my opponent missed was queen a5, queen b5 check, and white can probably win the endgame, because otherwise white is just losing on the spot. So rook a1 followed, king takes b2, queen e5, c3, rook e1, bishop b5 check. Looks like I had a move like queen b7, which is also not very logical, since, well, forcing a check is a move which follows the common sense. King e7, rook takes d5, queen f4, and here I calculated that I can play queen b4, king f6, queen d4, king g5. If king g6, then rook d7, which is similar to the game. Also black can defend on g7, so king g5. Here, if I play a move like queen d2, aiming for the endgame, I wasn't really sure if I can win something like that. Possibly black's pawns run faster, and maybe I'm not even winning. It's impossible to calculate. Some lines like that. Maybe I'm winning, maybe I'm not. Maybe it will end up with some king and bishop, rook against king, rook endgame. So I played bishop d7, and I calculated here I can walk the king upwards and nothing will happen. So queen c1 check, the only move. King b3, queen b1, king c4, queen a2. Now if black goes for the queen's exchange with queen d3, it's a much better version than the one I showed a moment ago. Queen a2, king c5. If queen a7, again king d6, that's a much better version of the endgame here. I shouldn't have any issues winning that. So queen a3 check, king c6, queen a6 check, king c7, and black ran out of checks, so rook a1 and queen e3, and black resigned because, for example, if black plays here, then that's a checkmate. Black takes here, I can play leave on bishop f5, rook d6, take the queen. So black resigned. And I have to say it was an interesting game, even though it was full of mistakes and lost opportunities and chances. And if you look at this game with an engine, it seems that there were so many mistakes. But actually, when you look at it from a human point of view, both players played quite logically. They played all the logical moves. And I think it was a very interesting game to look at. Another game that I will now analyze is my game against, if I read it correctly, Wurtelbier M50 or something like that from Germany. And it was one of the games where I lost, but I had my chances and was also very interesting and full of mistakes. So let's go for the opening. 45. Here, actually, in this round of tournament, I was usually playing e45 against seemingly stronger opponents, hoping for maybe some safer games instead of going in some theoretical battles in the Sicilian defense. I cannot say it paid out, though. Maybe it was better to follow my own main openings. Bishop b5, bishop d6. I don't know if it's the best move. I remember it existed, so I played it. d3, a6, bishop a4, h6. Here I don't want to castle yet because of g5 and maybe possible sacrifices here. I don't know if that's theory or not. Maybe it's not. However, I didn't know the lines exactly, so I played h6, e3, castle, and here my opponent surprised me with g4, which apparently is a move that has been played, but there are not many games in this position at all. So g4. Here I guess that I cannot take on g4 because of rook g1, and white is just winning straight away. Knight f6, bishop h6. So I played bishop c5 with the idea to maybe play d5 at some point, and also focus the f2 square so I can play knight g4 and attack on f2. g5. Here after taking, white can take the bishop, which makes no sense for me, so I played knight g4. And white played simply rook f1. And I don't have anything forcing here, so I played d6. G takes h6, g takes h6, so both players are actually opening their kings, but my one actually seems more in danger because white can still castle kingside, queenside. So I felt that something went wrong in the opening here, which didn't surprise me that much since I basically had no clue about this whole line starting with bishop d6. So g takes h6, h3, and here I'm forced to take on f2. However, I didn't feel it's that bad because white will also have an open king, and that's a rook and pawn for two pieces, which is not that bad. Rook takes f2, and actually it seems that according to the computer, white didn't have to take on f2, which is a move every human would play, but white could play rook g1, king h7, queen d2, queen f6, knight d5, or maybe something else here. Probably not. Probably white's just winning. If king h8, queen d2, queen f6, again knight d5, and white is winning. So actually I should have lost this game in 12 moves after playing a line I had no clue about. However, the good thing is that probably my opponent also played on his own in this game, and he didn't see all the best moves. He played the human move rook takes f2, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, king h7. And he played bishop takes h6, which surprised me because when I looked at this position, I felt that white has bishop and knight for rook, and generally he seems to have more pieces, so there was no need to overcomplicate things. However, he went for this tactics. King takes h6, queen d2 check, king h7, bishop takes c6. So, well, the computer wants to play king h8 and go back and force a draw, which apparently white didn't want to. White wanted to checkmate my king right here. So he played bishop takes c6. I was surprised at this move, and also the computer claims it's a mistake. However, it's still not that simple. I was happy with b takes c6 because white can play knight d4, 95 at any point. So b takes c6, knight g5 check, king h8, rook g1, queen f6 check, king e1. Bishop d7, that's pretty much the obvious only moves, knight e2. Here the computer is saying I'm winning, however I wasn't so sure about it, and I had the feeling that I might run out of moves at some point, because I can't move my king or queen at rook g8, h4, there's not much I can do with the rooks as well. Rook g7, that's a logical move to play, maybe rook a g8, knight g3. Here, bishop g4. I cannot allow knight h5, so I had to play bishop g4, which is still fine, knight f5. Bishop takes f5, rook f1. Which is of course much stronger than takes f5. And here I made a mistake. According to the computer, I should have played queen g6. Now if rook f5, I have f6, and I can kick out the knight from g5, and if he takes f5, queen h5, even if he plays f6, he can't play f6 because I take on g5, but if he plays something else, queen f2, I can play f6, and it seems like I'm actually probably winning here. So I missed my chance here by not playing queen g6. I think my assumption was just that he plays something like he takes f5 and f6 later, and I was scared of that. There was no need for that. So I played king g8, rook takes f5, queen g6, which was logical because I wanted to not allow him to play h5, but according to the engine, queen e7 was the move. And then something like queen f2, and to not allow f6, rook f8, rook f6, rook g6 is okay for me. And then also something like h5, f6, knight f3. I seem to be better here, even though I really have to disagree, because from looking at the human point of view, knight h4, then knight g6 or knight f5 is coming, and I have no way to defend the f5 square. I'm not really so sure if that's winning for black. However, what happened in the game was queen g6, queen f2, and now I made a mistake. I should have probably played rook e8, and then something like the computer suggests king d2, and it seems like I just cannot do anything here because any move weakens my position even more. This allows rook f7, this allows, I think, if I was going to say knight e6, but knight f7 is even worse. And it seems like I don't have moves to play. Maybe something like d5, but I think it's only white's playing for a win here. So I actually played a mistake, what I thought was a mistake, losing move, but maybe there was already no good move here. Rook f8, and what I missed was rook f6, queen h5, knight e6. And here I missed my last chance, of course an engine move to make a draw in this game, rook g4, knight takes f8, and now not king f8, but rook takes h4, with the plan of rook h2 or rook h1, I guess. Now if knight d7, then rook h1, and rook h2 is coming, so white has to play something else, like rook f5, now queen h6, and again I'm threatening rook h1 and rook h2. And the computer claims it's just 0-0 draw. However, I played what seemed to me the only move, so f takes e6. Now white got back the exchange, and now he's safe to play for a win in the endgame, which is following up now because I basically have no move. I cannot move my queen anywhere because of some checkmate threats. Like for example, queen g4, I think queen d8, I'm just losing, so I had to play queen h6 check. And the endgame is of course either lost or close to lost. Lost because my king is far away and white has running a pawn. However, let's still look at the endgame because I think I missed an option to make it to save a draw at some point. Rook g8, rook takes c7. So white won a pawn, rook 8, rook c6, and I think that was like a human inaccuracy. And basically at this point I was already like giving up. I thought it's lost. Knight took on a5, but actually when I played the rook a5 move, after I played it like straight away I saw I could play king a7, and actually black is taking the a6 pawn, and this is probably a draw. So that was still my last chance to draw the endgame. However, I just played too fast. That's all my fault here. And I took on a5, and I think after rook d6 this structure is lost. And I'll just show how nicely white played to win this endgame. So it might seem like I'm holding, I'm attacking c2, and white can progress. However, he can play h8, rook h2, and now rook h5. And black has to play something. So I can move the king, I have to move my rook, and now he plays king c4. And he can free up the c2 pawn. So that's very nice taking from my opponent. Rook a2, c3, rook 8. All I can do is wait here. 7. That's all forced because rook b6 is coming. k7, taking away my a file. Rook c6, king b5. Again, I'm running out of moves. Rook b7, so there's no checks. Rook d8, king b6, c4, and again I cannot do anything. So I played my last trick. Rook c7. Rook c7 is stalemate, of course. It's not blitz, and my opponent didn't fall for that. So king a6, and yet again I don't have a move. Now the pawn endgame is lost. c8, king b5, and it's over, since wherever I move my rook, he will just take the c5 pawn. So here, of course, rook c8, this, and white wins, so I just resigned by letting him checkmate right here. So thank you very much for listening to my analysis of the games. I hope that I managed to choose two games which were interesting, full of sacrifices and mistakes from both myself and opponents, and I will hope to do better in the tournament next year.